Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're exploring a really fascinating story, and, well, frankly, pretty unsettling, too. It's from the world of digital finance, a tale of ambition, innovation, and just massive deception. We're going to unpack the rise and the spectacular fall of this self-styled tech queen from Lagos, a visionary who, it seemed for a while anyway, had really cracked the code for fintech success. But as we'll dig into today, behind all the glamour, the TED-style talks, the hashtags, there was a truth much darker than any line of code, a deception so vast it actually caught the attention of the FBI.
That's exactly right. And for this session, we've pulled some key excerpts from quite an in-depth investigations titled The Tech Queen's Deception, a Fintech Fraud Empire. I'm going to use this material to try and understand exactly how this really intricate fraud was put together and how it managed to thrive for so long, really feeding on trust and buzzwords. And maybe most importantly, the stark lessons it offers all of us, for navigating this increasingly complex digital landscape.
Right. Our mission today is basically to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights from this extraordinary case, give you a kind of shortcut to being well informed about, well, the changing face of digital fraud. Okay, let's unpack this. So our story kicks off with Ruona Iguyovwe, the so-called tech queen of Lagos. On the surface, I mean, she was absolutely living the dream, styled herself as this leading tech entrepreneur, co-founder of multiple startups, and a really proud, very vocal advocate for African innovation. That was the image. Her online presence, her social media, it showed this incredible mix of glamour, grit, and what looks like pure entrepreneurial success, a real girl boss vibe. She was speaking on panels, posing for photos with, serious-looking investors, and claiming she was building these cutting-edge digital investment platforms that promise to help everyday people grow their wealth. Her branding, it was undeniably clean, very polished. And her words sounded incredibly empowering. But okay, here's where it gets really interesting. What was actually happening behind that glowing screen?
Well, what investigators uncovered, specifically the FBI, it was truly shocking. Ruona was allegedly the ringleader, the mastermind, behind a multi-million-dollar wire fraud operation. And it stretched far beyond Lagos, from Nigeria all the way into the U.S. This wasn't about legitimate business at all. It was about these elaborate fake investment schemes, meticulously designed, really, to trick ordinary people out of their hard-earned savings. Victims genuinely thought they were buying into, promising legitimate companies, but in reality, their money was just being immediately rerouted, laundered through multiple layers of shell accounts. These are, basically networks of fake or dormant businesses set up just to hide where the money's going. And then it was used not for investment, obviously, but for luxury goods, high-end real estate, and cryptocurrency.
Wow. So it was never actually about building a business. It was pure systematic fraud right from the beginning.
That's such a stark contrast to the image she was projecting, isn't it?
Yeah.
The report we looked at painted a grim picture. It said she wasn't investing their money. She was basically vanishing their futures. What's just fascinating here is the sheer scale of it all and the kind of systematic approach to the deceit. This wasn't some small-time scam. It was like an empire built on betraying trust.
Precisely. The scale and the methodical nature. That's what really stands out. It's incredible to think about the layers involved there. So how did this whole thing finally, come to light? The investigation suggests it started relatively small. Just a few complaints coming out of Texas, actually. People reporting sort of strange withdrawals from their accounts and, well, unsurprisingly, their investment returns weren't showing up. But then patterns started to emerge. Investigators began noticing IP addresses, the digital locations, all tracing back to Lagos. Accounts with suspiciously matching login details. And finally, this clear digital fingerprint kind of connecting all these separate complaints back to one person, Ruona.
Yeah. And with those digital fingerprints converging, the net really began to tighten. The FBI's response was pretty swift and, importantly, far-reaching. They partnered closely with international cybercrime units, meticulously digging into things like encrypted chats, digital ledgers, payment processors, all the digital trails. And what they ultimately found was, as the investigation put it, a textbook fraud empire. It had everything. Fake websites that looked totally legit.
Right.
Fabricated bank statements to fool investors. And even, get this, AI-generated testimonials.
AI-generated testimonials. Seriously.
Yeah.
So not just made-up quotes, but like convincing profiles. AI faces and voices trying to look like real happy customers. That's next-level deception.
Exactly. It creates this profound but totally fake sense of community and success around the scam. It really highlights, I think, that modern scams don't just fake documents anymore. They actually weaponize advanced tech to create hyper-realistic social proof. A key takeaway there for you, the listener, is probably to look beyond just the polished surface. Look for deeper, verifiable evidence of a company's claims, not just a slick website.
And then came the takedown itself. Ruona was arrested in Lagos and then subsequently extradited to the U.S., meaning she was formally transferred from Nigeria to the U.S. to face charges there. Now, this is apparently a rare and very serious move,
Yeah.
which really signaled just how massive this case was considered. I
Yeah.
mean, when the feds move across borders to get you, it's usually not just about getting the money back, right? It's about making an example, setting a precedent. But the real puzzle for me is still, how could someone operate such a huge fraud for so long, seemingly right under everyone's noses?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the investigation really digs deep into the psychology here. It reveals it wasn't just about the mechanics of the scam itself. She played on something much deeper. It wasn't just selling fake investments, you see. She sold hope. She very cleverly tapped into people's aspirations, talking about financial inclusion, empowerment for young Africans, the exciting promise of decentralized technology.
Okay, selling hope is one thing, but how do you disarm the natural skepticism people have, especially when it's about their life savings? What were the specific, psychological buttons she was pushing to make people ignore potential red flags?
Well, in a world that was, and frankly still is, craving innovation and new opportunities, she knew exactly which buzzwords would open wallets, and crucially, which ones would silence doubts. That's key. The insight here, I think, is that scammers often don't just sell an investment product. They sell a vision or a solution to some kind of widespread yearning or problem. She used her perceived influence, her polished websites, everything to project this image of legitimacy. Her apps, apparently, they seem to function, although the report says, barely, just enough to keep up appearances. And her team. Well, it seems they were either completely unaware of the scale, directly complicit, or in some cases, simply imaginary, non-existent. People wanted to believe in her. That's the core of it. Because belief is the ultimate con. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this case truly highlights the profound human element of trust in this digital landscape that's changing so fast.
Yeah, and the human cost of that betrayed trust. It's just devastating. Some victims, the report details, lost absolutely everything. Their life savings, gone. Their fundamental trust in other people, shattered. Even their belief in the power of innovation itself probably tarnished. We hear these heartbreaking examples. One woman in Georgia, she'd planned to use the investment returns for her daughter's college tuition. Now she's deep in debt instead. Another man, he genuinely thought he was supporting African entrepreneurship. That's what he believed. And now he has to completely rebuild his retirement fund. And the report stresses these weren't greedy investors just looking for a quick buck, were they? These were just everyday people who believed the wrong person.
Indeed. And Ruona's case, sadly, is just one example of what seems to be a growing and pretty alarming trend. Frauds that increasingly wear the skin of legitimate startups. They mimic the look and feel. If technology becomes more accessible to everyone, so do the tools to deceive. It's the flip side. Anyone with Wi-Fi and, say, a basic design program like Canva can mimic legitimacy with surprising ease these days. This case really shows us that just looking legitimate visually, it's no longer enough. It can be faked. You really need to dig deeper. Look for things like third-party verification, proper regulatory oversight, clear, transparent business models, not just pretty websites or, AI-generated happy customers. And in our increasingly digital world, perception really is power, for good and for ill. So now the FBI and really the world is watching, not just for Ruona's sentencing, but for the next con that's inevitably hiding in plain sight, just waiting to exploit that trust again. Which raises an important question for us, for you, the listener.
Yeah, the story of the tech queen, it's such a stark, undeniable reminder, a reminder of how potent that combination of technological promise and fundamental human trust can be, and just how easily perception can be twisted into this kind of elaborate, devastating deception. Her empire. It wore the crown of a queen, all right, but it was built entirely on lies. And now, the mask is well and truly off.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. In this increasingly digital world where literally anyone can mimic legitimacy online with a few clicks, what strategies can you actually employ to tell the difference, to discern genuine innovation from really sophisticated deception? How can we all cultivate a healthy skepticism, which we need, without completely shutting down our curiosity for true progress? Because we need that too. That's something for you to perhaps mull over or explore on your own.